Good day. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. It's Thursday, July the 14th, and we've got CEO Mark Saxon of Aguila Copper joining us. Aguila is an exploration and development company targeting electric critical metals with focus on its flagship Sherridon HMS project in Manitoba and its Lida and Cora projects in Nevada and Arizona. I'm happy to have Mark join us today. I've known Mark a while with his involvement in other public companies. Here at Radius, we're looking towards a future with an electricity-driven economy, and metals such as copper, nickel, and silver will be in very high demand. The flagship Sherridon Project is in a very historic mining district with many opportunities. I'm glad to have Mark here to tell us about Aguila's projects. But please remember, this is neither a recommendation or investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Mark, welcome, and please tell us about Aguila.
Martin, thank you very much, and good afternoon. And thank you to people who are online and who jump on later on as well. Hello to a few friends and things that have jumped on board. I know I've got a few special listeners this afternoon. My name's Mark Saxon, as Martin mentioned, and I'm Australian, obviously, and live in Australia. In a town called Bendigo, which is about an hour and a half north of Melbourne. So if anyone is sort of familiar with the Fosterville mine of Agnico Eagle, then I'm about 15 k's from there. Chilly morning in Bendigo and an early start, but that's okay. I'm a geologist by training and had a fairly substantial career in the mining industry. So recently having turned 50, that gives me about 30 years of experience in the industry. I started out with the good fortune of being in a major company. And that major company kind of gave me the great network and grounding in the business. About 20 years ago, I transitioned into junior markets, and I've been working in junior markets ever since, and I've had a number of companies that have been very successful and a few good exits, and director of a few companies still at the moment that are going well. So,
Mark, sorry, just a little tangentially here. My career was earlier in some bigger companies as well, and I didn't want to stay there, but they're really excellent for learning and making networks and understanding how good processes go. So I'm always a big fan of at least starting a career in a big firm and learning the ropes.
Absolutely. And I guess one of the great things the mining industry had at that stage, certainly in Australia, was a whole range of large and medium-sized companies that had great mentorship programs. And so I came in as a graduate recruitment program, and I was moved around a whole range of offices and worked with a whole range of people, and that's given me a network which has survived till today. And it's a little bit unfortunate that doesn't exist so much today, because to build a long career you need a pretty good foundation in mining. It's not an easy business. And so I guess my discussion today will be on Aguila Copper, which is it's an old company with a young story, and so I'll touch on some of its history and certainly all of its future. Mining, without question, at the moment is a little bit beaten up, and share prices are down. And there's
everything's pretty much beaten up right now, so you're in good company.
Yeah, exactly. So the industry as a whole is going through a bit of a slow patch, but that's okay. It's creating opportunity for new investors to enter at good prices, and that idea that of being able to buy good companies at half of what they were 6 months ago, I think, is an exciting opportunity. And do your own research, obviously. And but I guess and fundamentally, it's not just about making money and buying cheap companies. Mining is it's not about digging holes. It's about providing essential materials. And I think we've positioned Aguila really well to be one of those companies that can really make a difference and provide the essential materials to North America and be a very long-term supplier of particularly of copper, but of other metals as well. So as Martin said, please jump in with questions anytime. Very happy to touch on things deeper if people are interested. So the essential disclaimer of forward-looking statements. Please do your own research. Okay, let's jump into it. So I guess we've built Aguila as a team and a company that I certainly see as ticking most of the boxes in terms of a very investable company in terms of the junior exploration space. The key points that I'll discuss today, and please ask any questions as we go along. We're sort of ticking the boxes here on the slide. We've got a great team and good people involved that have had a really good experience in discovery and raising money and getting things done in companies. The corporate structure is excellent, with a high degree of management ownership, which means we're very committed to the outcomes of the company and strongly aligned with shareholders. We're focused very much on the copper business, and yeah, the future for copper looks very well. Again, a little bit choppy at the moment, let's call it, but the future looks very bright. We're building as a company a really strong pipeline of projects, and already we've got 3 very high merit copper projects that are going to build the foundation of the company as we go forward. So I think we tick most of those boxes, and places that make us a good opportunity for investment. On the right there, we can see Anders Augelius, our chief geologist in the US, on one of our projects, and so we'll discuss that obviously a little bit more later on. So yeah, on the map there we can see yeah, the diversity, I guess, that we have in terms of the company. So yeah, geography gives us good distribution. So we've got up in Sherridon in Manitoba, we've got obviously cold climate project where we've got to be mindful of the season. Down in Arizona and Nevada, we can work essentially all year round. There's not too much we lose. Obviously a little bit hotter and colder, but yeah, we can get our work done all year round.
In Manitoba, yeah, it's cold there, and obviously in the winter time. But it's not like you're high in the mountains in BC or anything like that. It's like but you pretty much shut down for the winter time, at least at this stage.
Yeah, the site that we're working on has very good infrastructure and access. So it's got we're quite close to a small village, and so we have all year round driving access. Yeah, I think I've got a lot of experience working in Finland and Sweden in the winter, and again with very good infrastructure. Yeah, at minus 25 or so, you do shut down and you don't work through, and really you get metal fatigue if you're doing drilling. You're placing your staff at risk, so really it's not worth it under those conditions. But beyond that, it's not too bad. I guess the other time of year is kind of the breakup or the thaw, when roads get impassable, and yeah, yes, you can drive them, but you do a lot of damage to roads, and so yeah, obviously nobody appreciates if you destroy roads with heavy vehicles. So that's probably the places to be mindful of. Down in Arizona, yeah, at the moment it's plus 40 degrees. Yeah, the drillers tend to contract a little bit back to major projects and mine sites at the moment. It's just a little bit more comfortable, or they prefer to do night shift drilling rather than round the clock drilling, just to sort of keep the temperature down. And again, yeah, important health and safety considerations. So I guess, yeah, the diversity of projects allows us to work all year round. We've got diversity as well in the style of projects that we're looking for. And so, yeah, for any geos on the call, yeah, VHMS deposit, skarns and porphyries are all different styles of copper deposits, but together they account for almost all of the copper produced in the world at the moment. So, so it gives us the diversity of success, I suppose, and also the byproduct metals that come with each of those deposits is a little bit different. So yeah, we're quite well distributed across those terrains. Okay, there, I think that one worked for me. So yeah, just a holding slide here really, and just to give the essential information on the company. You can see our ticker there, our major ones on the TSX, which is AGL, trading also on the other markets, but yeah, reasonably thin trade on those markets. Shares on issue, you can see we're at 25 million and about 35 fully diluted. A market cap of around $5 million. So yeah, under any measure, we're beginning the journey, and yeah, Aguila is that kind of company. We're beginning the journey and starting to really add value to our projects. And yeah, not much downside, I would say, at $5 million. And but again, do your own research and consider it as a investment opportunity.
On the fully debt, you've got 10 million options and warrants out. Are those mostly on the option side, or do you have are there a bunch of warrants hanging?
So we do have some warrants. Most of the warrants are sitting at 45 cents, okay. Which came from a private placement, which we completed a little under 2 years ago. All right. So yeah, I think after trade, or in fact about now, we're extending those warrants a little bit to give yeah, the 45-cent warrants a little bit to extra time. So yeah, we'll be keeping that that fully diluted number will stay similar for a while. So small companies, small companies are really yeah, our assets are important, but our people are more important, I think. And really, it's a measure of not just good projects, but what you can do with them. And I think that's the most important thing in a small company. So myself at the top there. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm a geologist by training, and yeah, went through Melbourne University. The number 2 on the list there is Blair Way. Yeah, Blair is yeah, let's call him our rock star at the moment on the board. He's the CEO of a company called Patriot Battery Metals, which has made a major lithium discovery in Quebec, doing really well. Nick Demare, our CFO, and lots of experience. Amanda Dahl, a geologist by training, now doing more in operational excellence and supporting small companies like ours to make better decisions. And yeah, Amanda's based in Saskatoon. And Dusan Burka, who's an engineer by trade and has been with the company a long time as an advisor, and particularly on the financial side. The 2 guys at the bottom there, and I'll add their bios in when I get around to it one day, is Anders Aurelius, who is our chief geo down in the US. Anders is Swedish heritage, has been in the US a long time, and we work together in Sweden and is a key part of the team. And Jamil Sader is a geochemist and a good friend, and ex with a career in Anglo American, and now moving out into small companies and enjoying what he's doing with us, and really adding a lot of value as well. So I suppose, and I won't dwell too much on the big themes, as yeah, there's lots of communications in the market about EVs and electrification, and so I'll just touch lightly on these points. But really, the decision on copper is not that hard. And when we founded, well, in fact, I'll just touch a little moment on how we got here with AGLA. And AGLA is an old company. It's about 35 years old, but it was a gold exploration company in working in Peru, and made a few good discoveries. But in 2017, it was struggling a little. It didn't really have a leadership team. It didn't really have a clear message, didn't have a good project, and didn't have money. So the company was rolled back and reset. And I took over in 2020. When we started, we had a gold focus, and during 2020, obviously COVID years, tough years, and so we kind of had our ear to the ground on what was working in the markets as a young company. And the EV metric was obviously moving very strongly. The energy transition was a big focus. And I guess the COVID message was local sourcing, sustainable sourcing, sourcing from trusted suppliers. That was a very strong message, and I'm sure we all remember that. And yeah, certainly for us in Australia, it was a very clear message. And so the local sourcing of metals has become a very big metric in that thinking as well. And so copper is the foundation really of the energy transition. Yes, there's going to be lots of lithium and graphite and cobalt used, but really without copper, none of that matters. Copper is the key one. And so we can see on the graph there the substantial step up in copper consumption. It kind of doubles between an internal combustion engine and an EV, so certainly that's important. But when you consider energy transition, it doesn't matter whether it's nuclear or coal or wind. Then we require a massive amount of copper to transfer that electricity to the place it's used. So that's inescapable, and so copper really doesn't have an opportunity for substitution, which some of those other materials do. And yeah, big market and good value. So that's why we focused on copper. Yeah, I guess when the forward-looking consumption is built into the model, we can see that there is a very substantial gap between the supply and demand in the copper market. So yes, again, as I said, yeah, there's a few little bumps in the road at the moment as the world considers recessions and slowdowns in economies. However, over the short and if not the medium term, the mismatch between the discovery and development of copper and the demand for copper is massive, and really creates an opportunity for companies like ours to contribute. And I guess we've really had that in our thinking that yeah, we want to find copper-rich projects in jurisdictions where we can work quickly and make a difference in terms of that supply gap, sort of in a 5 to 10 year time frame. Mines in the current way we work with very strong environmental controls, it takes a long time to open a mine. Nothing happens quickly. And so that gap is almost impossible to fill because we can't open mines quickly enough to fill that gap, regardless of a mine being discovered tomorrow. So, I think copper is a great place to be.
And just on the South America there, it's over 40% of mine production. It's prone to disruption as well. Like they have the world's, I believe, biggest copper mines in there, and they are coming to end of life or getting closer to that. So that's part of where this big drop off is in the supply side. And as well, there just over the last 10 years, there hasn't been that much investment in that space. So that's kind of what's driving
absolutely.
the mismatch.
And for those of us that have been in the industry for a while, the years, I guess, in mining and exploration from, let's say, 2011 to 2020, 2019 were tough years. There was not a lot of funding coming into the market. And so the exploration industry was starved. And so if the exploration business doesn't have enough money, then it's a reliance on luck rather than on sort of good, well-built programs. And occasionally luck works, but not very often. Most of it's just done by good science and plenty of drilling. Good science costs money, and it costs people, and it costs time, and it costs computing capacity, and so there's no escape from that really. So there's a very strong connection between the money spent and the success in exploration. I guess the other comment there and on South America is that perhaps the easy stuff has been found, and we can say that for most actively explored areas, and me as an Australian, I include that. But really, the new thinking is about deeper exploration, new processing methods, where ore deposits that previously have not been high enough grade can now be processed and better recoveries. So there's a whole lot of opportunities, and really as the copper price moves up, then some of those projects can become economic that haven't been in the past. So technology can solve some of those problems. But I guess, particularly thinking back on that South American issue, and I've just mentioned there the resource nationalization is an issue now that really has to be factored in, because we're thinking of Chile or Peru or Ecuador and Colombia and Indonesia and even China is a significant producer of copper, and Zambia and Congo, places that have had challenges in the past and are likely to have challenges in the future. So for us, sitting in Australia or Canada or the US, building high value EV or renewable energy supply chains based on uncertain supply from maybe providers that we don't really trust, or we don't believe in their ethics or their business practices, then it's not a great place to be. And I guess Europe is the great example of that at the moment, with taking Russian gas. So last slide here before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty of the project, and really it talks about we need a lot more copper. There's no question about it. We need it for the energy transition, and but that political issue exists and will remain regardless of what the demand does. And so our focus on North America, it's been very clearly thought about, to provide extra strength into that North American market. Certainly when Americans consider, or when the government at the very least considers purchasing of materials, then Canada and Australia are considered American essentially. The security and the closeness of our economies essentially means that we're very trusted suppliers. So finding something in Canada or Australia is the equivalent of it being in the US. There's really no barrier there, and so we see them all equally in terms of their ability to supply into US markets or into European markets as well. And obviously, mentioning that ESG focus again, I certainly think that the reliance on trusted partners and long-term relationships, I think that's going to be a very key part of how the businesses run in the future. And I think that's a permanent change that's been caused both by COVID and what's happening in Russia at the moment.
Well, I think, like you say, Russia, that is key. Like they're weaponizing grain and all sorts of stuff to leverage in a war. And I don't think there's any reason to think that sort of gentlemanly behavior will be expected when comes to crisis points or wars, or when you're trying to feed or grow your own economy. People raise their elbows and do whatever they can to win.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, people defend their own their own backyard, their own families, their own circumstances, and so yeah, everyone's doing the same thing around the world at the moment. And in fact, I saw recently the footage of Angela Merkel and Putin, where the gas pipeline between Germany and Russia was connected. And yeah, a big fanfare, and yeah, there was an orchestra in the background, and yeah, a very big ribbon cutting celebration. And yeah, really not that long ago, so it was only around 10 years ago. And so yeah, Germany in recent history has allowed them to become very connected to that Russian gas supply. To a point where there is no backup plan. And yeah, certainly the Germans are not happy with that, and yeah, they're changing that as quickly as they can. But yeah, it shows yeah, things do change, and so you've got to prepare a little for a worst case scenario. And I think we've learned that as a yeah, very, very starkly, unfortunately. So jumping now into our project portfolio, and so yeah, I'll talk first of our Sherridon project in Manitoba. And yeah, Martin, again, please jump in with any questions. And
yeah,
so,
Mark, when we talked earlier, I really like the story, and I hope you can share it, of how you guys, or how you found the Sherridon project. Not so much geology, boots on the ground, but sort of hands on the mouse.
Yeah, sure. And really, it's a yeah, we can call it a COVID driven discovery, in that we were yeah, my kids came back home, and yeah, my daughter, who was supposed to be living in Melbourne at university, and came back home and lived under our roof again for a while. And yeah, our lockdowns obviously in Australia were quite tough, and so we kind of had a bit of a family project about compiling all of the historic 43-101 reports that have been published in the past, and so of which there's, yeah, we're looking at, I think we've got to 10,000 or something at the moment, so it's a lot. And from those reports, we were just extracting the record of resources, and so yeah, they're a great document, and that are published on CEDAR. So yeah, I was literally sort of going through a list of connecting where resources had been discovered, yeah, really over the last sort of 20 years, and captured in a 43-101 report, and those that hadn't had recent press releases, and trying to understand why a resource project had disappeared from view. And so yeah, in that process, and yeah, with the support of our other geos and people that were involved, one of the ones that fell out was this Sherridon project in Manitoba. And so it was a project that had kind of disappeared from view because of some corporate reasons. It was a discovery that was made and drilled out from, let's say, 2006 until about 2010. And that discovery was by a junior company. The project then moved into the hands of Hudbay, and so Hudbay was clawing back or earning the project. Hudbay decided to exit the project, and the assets went back to the small company, to Halo Resources once again. But by the time the projects went back, Halo no longer existed. It had been merged with another company, and the industry was tough. It was unable to continue the project, and so that company was delisted, and so the projects were essentially mothballed and sat there until we came and asked questions of the right people, and we were able to get the company structure back in a way it could make decisions and do a joint venture with us. And so yeah, as you say, it was just through yeah, a bit of online detective work as much as anything else that delivered the project. And yeah, I guess the thanks in particular go out to Nick Demare, who our CFO, who was the one that did all the paperwork to reconstruct the deal and made it possible to be able to do the joint venture on this project. So I guess the really striking thing about Sherridon is that it's a major project, and it sits in the Flin Flon belt of Manitoba, and in fact the photo that is in my backdrop here is from Flin Flon, from my last visit there. So Flin Flon, I'm sure Canadians know it well, others maybe not. That it's a northern community built for mining really, and it's got a number of large copper mines in the region. It's got a concentrator, it's got a copper smelter that's operated by Hudbay. It's got mines that have been operating for nearly 100 years, and so it's a very major district. So sitting about 60 kilometers north of Sherridon, north of Flin Flon, is the Sherridon area, and so Sherridon is the place that we own the entire camp now. It's got 4 historical resources. It's got a small village. It's got a railway line going through it. It's got big exploration potential. So yeah, ticks all the boxes. Plus, it was a very substantial past producer. And I guess, perhaps even the most encouraging thing, and I've worked in many places around the world. Manitoba certainly seems to be an excellent place for investment. We've been made extremely welcome by really everyone we've met in the province. Geological Survey, I've had the opportunity to meet the Premier, the Resources Minister, and the story is very consistent that, very much open for business, very much want to see mining and particularly green mining as a key part of their future and future tax base. Manitoba has 95% hydropower, and so the idea that we can be a green miner and be not be using diesel, we can use electric trucks on a hydro grid and do most of our work with hydropower, I think is great. It sort of really gives us that sweet spot that the industry is looking for at the moment.
So it's a historic resource. 2010, or the last resource estimates were done. You also mentioned, what did they actually? Obviously, Flin Flon area is a major producer. Was there actual production on your properties as well historically?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll drop you some photos in a minute. We'll get to see what the site looked like when it was operating. So the site closed in 1955. And so, in fact, the town of Sherridon. There's a very famous company that I'm sure most Canadians know, which today is called Sherritt. At the time it was called Sherritt Gordon, and so Sherridon is named for the 2 founders of the Sherritt Gordon company, and so with a contraction of their name. So it was their first mine, and so that was from. I guess near the end of the Second World War, so 1940s through to 1955, it was operating, and it was a very major mine at the time. And so I just brought up a little map there, which I just found last night as I was sort of preparing this presentation, which is hot off the press. It's Canadian for Canada. It's the critical materials strategy, which many companies have at the moment. Many countries, have at the moment to understand where critical materials and metals will come from in the future of mining. So at the moment, this is still a work in progress, and so the Canadian Geological Survey is putting this information together. But you can see the quote there down the left side that the Canadian Geological Survey has identified 8 prospective areas for critical mineral-rich regions, and so we can see that one of those regions is where we're working here, which is Flin Flon Snow Lake. So our project sits in that belt there. So a very important part of Canadian geology, and I think it's going to be a great producer for a very long time. And the major camps that we can think of for the region are the Thompson Belt, which was the foundation of Inco, now Vale, and also the Flin Flon and Snow Lake deposits, which operated by Hudbay. So really foundations of Canadian mining come from that camp there. And I guess what caught my eye as well when we look at that map, much of the other areas that are coloured in red are in fairly challenging locations. In terms of access and infrastructure. Flin Flon Snow Lake, it's got a big mining industry already. It's got great infrastructure, and I think in terms of a first mover advantage because of that infrastructure, it can be a really it is and will continue to be a very important supplier to Canadian and to US industries. So zooming in now to where we're working in Manitoba. So we're kind of quite close to the Saskatchewan border, flat kind of lakey country. Not beautiful, but very good place for a mining industry. so we can see there some of the features of the transaction that we completed. So yeah, very cheap deal, and that was really because we put in all the work, I suppose. So Aguila paid for for all the legals and the support that was required to get this deal done. So yeah, very cheap deal. So Halo Resources was taken over in 2013. It became a private company, and so it wasn't able really to continue on with the exploration of these projects. And so that's where they kind of fell into, yeah, they were forgotten. On the project, we can see the red dots there, the places that there was two large mines. So yeah, Sherridon, west and east. And yeah, I'll share a photo of those in just a minute. But the other places that lots of work were done are the blue dots. And so there's historic resources at each of those locations. So the work there was done by either by Hud Bay or by Halo Resources, our joint venture partner, with yeah, hundreds of holes were drilled and geophysics was done and soil sampling and yeah, assays and yeah, all that money was spent, which we now have access to. So when we took over the project, we received 150 gigabytes of data of past knowledge on the project. Yeah, we've been out in the field. We can see the drill core. Most of it still exists. We can find drill collars, and so we're able to sort of pick up where Halo left off immediately with the benefit of all that knowledge. So yeah, we don't have to go back and redo their work. We learn from it and we move on. So if there is a challenge, it's almost too much data. It's sort of understanding what's gone before takes quite a long time to make sure that we're making we use that data and we make the best decisions going forwards. So we're at that point at the moment.
So just to clarify, there are historic mines there from like 50, 60, 70 years ago or so. But the drilling are actually like 43101 compliant, I guess done in the early 2000s. That's when, those are still valid data. You don't have to, do they get classified as historic drill results or?
Yeah, the last resource report was done in 2010.
Okay.
So not that long ago, and so it was done with drilling of the time and data of the time. But yes, we have to refer to them as historic resources. Yeah, even yeah, historic resources makes them sound like they're from 50 years ago, but yeah, they're only 2010. So the data quality is good. The drill core exists. The assays were all done with ALX Chemex, now ALS Global, which is a company that yeah, still does most of the assaying for most companies today. So we can go back and get original files, and yeah, we can talk to the people who did the work. And in fact, we've received the resource report from the guy that did the work at the time and all the raw data. I've been in touch with the with the CEO of the time who did a lot of the geological work. With the database administrator who put together all the data. Yeah, all those people are still operating in the industry. So yeah, while we use the word historic for good reason and under the 43101 system, yeah, it's recent historic rather than ancient historic, let's say. So.
All right.
So yeah, and just as we talk about it there's some pictures of what the site looked like at the time of mining. So yeah, a fairly big mining camp, a big concentrator, yeah, lots of infrastructure. And in fact, you can see in that bottom right photograph, that was the hotel in the town, which only burnt down, I think it was around 20 years ago. So yeah, it was still there until that time. So yeah, sad to lose something like that. So yeah, I'll just jump back to where I was there. Sorry. And, so yeah, we're talking here of deposits that are known as VHMS deposits, volcanic hosted massive sulfide deposits. So yeah, no need for a geology lesson, but yeah, VHMS deposits are yeah, obviously occurring in volcanic rocks, and they form on the bottom of the seafloor. So where the ocean crust is kind of getting ripped apart, then hot fluids come up from the crust, and with them those hot fluids bring metals. As they come into the seawater, then those metals drop out of solution and become in the solid phase and build up ore deposits. And so yeah, if we cast our minds back, then the ones here developed like 1.9 billion years ago. So but exactly the same process that was happening at the time. So in the Flin Flon belt, so this is that central northern Manitoba belt. We've got the Flin Flon area, which is very large mining camp with about 17 of these style deposits. The Snow Lake area, which has at least 12 of those deposits, and then our in red there we have our camp, which is the Sherridon camp. So the Sherritt Gordon mine there is SG was around 8 million tons of production up until 1955. And then the resources that we have now are 22 million tons in 5 deposits. And so it's a very significant camp, and it's the third largest in that Flin Flon district. If we can jump across and just off the map, there's a company doing a lot of work at the moment called Foran. So Foran is developing their McIlvenna Bay project with another deposit called Big Stone, and so they're doing extremely well and finding another one of these camps across in Saskatchewan, probably about 100 kilometers, I guess, from the Manitoba border, and doing a great job. And so it's quite an active region. There's lots of companies getting stuff done, trying to find these style of deposits, and it's a great part of the world to be working in.
The resources in the historic, we're about to go there, like in the Flin Flon area, it's primarily copper, or it's copper and gold, or
Sure. No, very good question. And it changes a little bit across the belt, and that kind of relates with geological history. But so Flin Flon is copper and zinc and silver. For us in the Sherridon camp, we're copper, zinc, silver, and some gold. Coming across to the Snow Lake area, it's more copper and gold. So the eastern part of the belt seems to be a little bit more gold rich than the western part of the belt. And so, in fact, in the Snow Lake area, there's gold only deposits. And so there's some projects there being worked by Kinross that are focused particularly on gold, not on the copper or the base metals that are in that region. So it kind of varies across the belt. So we can see there on at the right hand side, we can see Ferro and Wetutsko. They're gold projects. And in fact, I haven't shown them there on the map, but in that area as well, there's a number of lithium projects also. And lithium is quite common in these greenstone belts, and a really great opportunity for us in Sherridon as well. There's never been a lithium assay. We know that there's pegmatites cutting through the ore body and cutting through the rocks. It's certainly one of the things we back to do is understanding the lithium potential of that region as well.
All right.
So the Sherridon project has, so this is a combination of the resources in the area. And I guess the first thing that I'd like to point out there is my first bullet point, which is 70% of the resources are within 100 meters of surface. So really what Hudbay was doing and what Halo was doing when they were drilling out deposits and creating resources, they were looking for near surface open pittable deposits that could be mined quickly and put onto a train line to come back into Flin Flon for rapid processing. So they weren't looking at deeper targets. They weren't looking at finding new discoveries. They were drilling out things that were known near surface. So really the existing resources, yes, that's great. That's a really good opportunity there for near-term mining. But the exciting potential really as well is the stuff that sits below that 100 meters, below the places that have never been drilled before. And in the copper price of today, which is around double of what it was when these resources were calculated, then the opportunity is really different. So we can take a look at a whole new lot of opportunities at much greater depths. And so there's exceptional opportunities there. And so we can see near surface open pittable and shallow underground operations there in the resources.
Is there a certain style of mineralization in that area that's kind of consistent, and is it sort of refinery friendly?
Essentially all of the stuff in the Flin Flon district is much the same. So it's chalcopyrite, it's sphalerite, it's pyrite. So very traditional ores that process well. So tend to get high recoveries, and so everything should process in a similar way. Can never guarantee that until we do the test work, but but certainly the project's had plenty of metallurgical test work on it. So yeah, we know that there is processes to recover. So.
Yeah, and obviously plenty of water and electricity to fuel.
Yes, exactly. No shortage of that one. So yeah, we're spoiled by water, I think, in Manitoba. So so this is a very typical for one of the deposits, and so we can see a pit near surface that was modelled, and then almost no drilling down dip and below it. So yeah, some good intersections that weren't included in the pit design because they were just looking for shallow resources. So there's a great opportunity, and we're doing it to go back and rethink that mining opportunity and how to do things with today's technology and today's metal prices. It really does change everything. So I suppose, yeah, before we move on from Sherridon, I guess this is really the opportunity that we see at in all VHMS deposits. And so this is a deposit in Brazil. And so just on top of, I've just dropped at the right scale that pit shell. So just to show what we're thinking about in terms of the near surface mine. This is a VHMS deposit in Brazil, owned by Nexa Resources. Yeah, we can see the early parts of the discovery are the red lines here, and yeah, relatively thin. But yeah, deep drilling and further discovery finds really the mother lode. So that's a world-class, utterly world-class intersection.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's how VHMS deposits develop. As I said, they sort of come to surface, they bubble up, they build mounds. So some of it goes away from the source, and so they form thin horizons, but then close to the source, they form bigger mounds and bigger deposits. And then when the rocks get folded and deformed, everything moves around a little bit, and it forms features like that where, yeah, you get sort of higher grade and more concentrated features. And so so that's what the work has shown at Snow Lake, at Flin Flon, at McIlvenna Bay in Saskatchewan, all very similar to this style of deposit where you start with a smaller deposit at surface and you end with a deposit that lasts 100 years, as per Flin Flon, when you go to depth. So yeah, a bit of the old photography we saw before, and yeah, and that's kind of what it looks like today. Yeah, so the small village of Sherridon still left there. The train line is perfectly operational, goes across the property. It's owned by a First Nations band, and so they're seeking they're seeking business to come and use that train line. So yeah, very happy to have us in the region, and we've started those discussions. On the top right there, we can see the open pit, which is the entrance point for the east mine. That one is. And yeah, a little bit on the lay of the land. It's not the most beautiful country. It's had some fires through recently, and yeah, but great for exploration. So yeah, I think we're using up a lot of our time, so I'll keep moving. And yeah, so yeah, really, and you can find this presentation on the website, obviously. And so yeah, very prospective region. Yeah, lots of data. Great team to get stuff done, and yeah, we're really excited about working on this project. And Manitoba is a great place to work, and Manitoba is a great spot for flow through funding as well, and obviously that's a great advantage that the Canadian industry has, and yeah, many thanks for the opportunity to the Canadian government, I guess, because it really does incentivize a lot of exploration inside of Canada. And so yeah, certainly we're considering flow through funding for our next financing. All right, so that was the long one. I'll move a little bit quicker in the other projects, but we're looking here at the Lida Project, which was yeah, one of the early ones that we pegged. We own 100% of it, based on our own kind of target generation. So it's in Nevada. It's in a very highly mineralized belt, which is known as the Walker Lane. And so the Walker Lane is a very rich mining district. Yeah, tens of mines are operating in that district. Largely for copper and silver. I guess the opportunity that we saw in that region was yeah, to take a bit of a different look and to go back and look for copper in that region. And yeah, and Lida is the first of those projects that we've brought forward. I've included on the map there Yerington, which is yeah, which is a very major copper system, which has had a lot of historic mining and current mining as well. Another major copper project that's being drilled at the moment by Rio Tinto, New York Canyon, and then yeah, later as copper as well. Um, so we did a lot of good geology and identified Lida as a prospective target. And sorry, I forgot to move the slide. So yeah, we saw some geological features at Lida that we really liked, and went out, and we had Anders, our geologist down there, went and did a first field visit, and it was a spot where we thought there was a lot of cover, and so we didn't think there was all that many rocks coming to surface. We thought mainly it was younger sediments that came over the top. But we got to site there and we saw, okay, there is actually quite a lot of rocks. There's quite a lot of old workings, and hopefully on the screen there you can see kind of that greeny color on the dump in that top photograph. And yeah, the greeny color is all copper. So it's a quartzite or a sandstone at surface with a lot of copper that's going into the matrix of the sandstone, which we found very attractive and took us by surprise. We've found about 200 workings on the project area. So yeah, some more substantial than others. See it as a really great copper target. The copper target at surface is in sandstone. At depth, we're seeing a limestone, and that's why we see as a skarn target. So a skarn is a certain type of ore body where the copper replaces the limestone and forms a massive sulfide body. So, and I've mentioned there, and anyone that was reading ahead, when we started to compile and look a bit more deeply at the project, we found that there was some copper exploration was done there in the 1970s by Conoco. And so Conoco was the company that found Yerrington to the north and was also working up there. They looked at a few other prospects. They completed an IP survey, very, very regional, and came up with an IP anomaly, which is the cross-hatching here, based on very limited data. We saw that as a really great target because it shows that there's sulfide at depth, essentially. And IP is a system where you put some electrical current into the ground, and anything that's sulfide reacts to that electrical current and puts a bit of a signal back. And so this is where the signal lies, to show that there's sulfide in the ground, and the sulfide is may well be copper minerals in the ground that is giving that reaction. So in combination with the samples that we've taken and that IP anomaly, it's given us a really great target. And so that's something that we're now regarding as drill ready. With our own sampling, we can see there on the right hand side. So we had copper up to 26 grams, 26%, which is exceptional. But from around 60 samples, we had 20 that were above 1%. So yeah, really great grades. It shows there's over quite a large area there. So it shows there's really something going on. There's a lot of copper coming into the system. And I guess a little surprisingly, we saw silver up to 436 grams per ton. And there it is. We're not too far from Tonopah, which is a big historic silver mining district. And in some of our mapping and our data, we can see some structures that do give us an understanding of where that silver is coming from. So an extra layer to our testing. So we've recently completed our own IP. We've essentially this area where we've gone back and we've repeated that data to make sure we know where everything is, and update it with the with high quality data. That's gone really well. We've seen preliminary results on that, and we'll be press releasing that very soon and making it into a drill ready target. We've completed all we need to do for mapping and sampling, and so really the next stages are for drilling. And so we're seeing that during Q3, subject to being able to get a drill rig, which is quite challenging at the moment. So yep, a few of the rocks, and any geos will appreciate a few rock photos. And so we've got some breccia pipes similar to this one. We've got some vein style mineralization, and then this curious sort of quartz sandstone hosted mineralization, which is quite widespread as well. So really interesting target there. So, and our third project, and I'll try even to cut a little shorter on this one, is in the copper belt of Arizona, which sits in between Tucson and Phoenix. Some of the world's largest copper mines sit in that belt. Yeah, really highly prospective region, and so yeah, it's a great place to be exploring. And we began our work there thinking that all the easy stuff would be done. We didn't really expect to find a target as prospective as the one we've found for Cora. So it's a porphyry style target, and it's sitting under shallow cover, but yeah, it's giving us the opportunity for a blind discovery, I think, which is really exciting.
How did you stake? Did Aguila stake this project itself, or did you get it off of someone, or how did it come into your portfolio?
No, we staked it ourselves, so we own 100%, and the same for the Lida Project as well. We staked that ourselves based on our own work, and so we own it 100%. So yeah, I guess the thinking that we've had, and I'll just jump ahead to the next slide to sort of expand on it, is that yeah, as I said earlier in the presentation, that yeah, most easy stuff is done in mining, and so it's quite hard these days to go to somewhere where you can take a really great surface outcrop that nobody's taken before. So the map I've got here is from that Arizona area, where the purple is the cover rocks. So the rock and the sediment that's come in after the ore body's developed. And so that comes in and it masks over the top of the ore bodies. So we can see from all the dots on the map, they're all, on the whole, they're major porphyry copper deposits. They're big old mines. Almost all of them have been found in outcropping areas. So where a geologist over the last 100 years has been able to walk on top of it and take a sample. So the next opportunity sits underneath the purple areas. And I guess that was our thinking, that we were going to, higher risk, high return, explore underneath cover. And if you look at what's happening in Australia these days, we sort of accept as well that most of the easy stuff has been done. And Australia has a lot more areas of cover than happens in North America, just because of the geological history. So in Australia, we're drilling underneath hundreds of meters of cover. We're making great discoveries that have been missed in the past, using good data, and it's been an exceptionally rich time in Australian discovery because of new techniques and being prepared to drill a little bit deeper. So that was the thinking we brought here, and so we saw this North Star project, which is a small copper mine which sits next to our Cora project, and I guess our thought was, if there's a small mine, then small mine outcrop, there can be a large mine undercover. And so we started to take a bit of a closer look at that area. And so in the compilation of data, we found some drill holes that were drilled in the 1950s. So yeah, again, underneath that cover, so we can see what the cover looks like, this kind of flat sandy land where you don't see any rocks. And so we found records of those holes that were drilled into this flat sandy land. So the Cora copper mine sits on the hill, and these drill holes are in the flat part. That include up to 225 meters at 0.29% copper, which is a great discovery. And it was from 1950s. So we can't go back and validate the drilling. So we're obviously putting a note of caution there to say that we need to go and do our own work. But we've found the maps, we've found the original information of the day. There's no reason for it to be wrong, but we can't guarantee that it's right, I suppose, is what we can say there. So really exciting project with that kind of copper. And so these are the maps of the day that you can see, and we can see the locations. So sitting up here where the rock is exposed, the old North Star copper mine, and then a bit of old drilling undercover around it. So exploring undercover is never easy. It's a little bit, you don't see the rocks. You've got to sort of have a guess what's there. But one of the great ways to explore undercover is aeromagnetics. And so aeromagnetics is a helicopter-borne survey. This is data we paid for and we collected ourselves 3 or 4 months ago. And the magnetics sees through that cover. It shows you what's in the cover is non-magnetic, so we see through the cover and we can see what lies below. So in this area, and so those squares are 2 kilometer squares. The North Star copper mine sits up here in the outcropping portion, and so on the left hand side of that line and the north side is the areas where the rocks show out. In through here, where we're underneath the cover. So the North Star copper mine that's now closed sits in through here. We can sort of see some structure and fabric coming down in this direction. Underneath the cover here, we've got a let's call it a thumbprint magnetic anomaly, which is a magnetic low. So the target here that we're looking at is a porphyry copper target. So I've just dropped up a quick little cartoon of what a porphyry copper looks like. So it's a rock that intrudes up through the crust and roughly circular. And so they tend to be associated with magnetic lows because of the alteration that comes with them. And so this is a great looking target that we have when it's combined with the idea that we've got lots of copper and drill holes there as well, then from the 1950s, then it looks like a really great copper target and quite easy to drill by moving onto that flat ground and drilling some holes. So again, that's a drill ready target for us now, and so we're good to go on those two projects at Cora and Lida, and then up at Sherridon, we're still going through, I guess, the data compilation phase and making sure we understand the work history before we launch into our own work. But we're getting close to having that complete as well. So it feels like I've been talking for quite a while. So I'll sum up there on I guess some of the key points that most people look at when they're considering investing in small companies. And please put us on your watch list and give us a thought as one of those investment opportunities. I think it's a great time to be investing in mining in general, and certainly give a thought to AGLA. And Martin, back to you. And thank you for the opportunity for the presentation.
All right. Thank you. So just want to, with your plans going forward here, so you've got a ton of data out of the Sherridon, and you're at the end of sort of processing that all. You don't have a plan yet per se, because you haven't, you're 150 gigabytes or so you were saying of data. You're still processing that. How far away are you sort of from having processed it and sort of come up with a plan of attack?
So I guess the first part of the plan is on every project that any geologist works on. The first part of the plan is understand what people did before, because otherwise you end up drilling the same holes that people drilled before you if you don't know what's been done before. So we're working through that process now. We've got a geophysicist working on that part of the project, so that's got a lot of geophysical data. We're bringing all of the drilling data into a single database and understanding where all the drill holes are. We're looking, I guess we're balancing the project between, is it a near-term mining operation or is it a discovery project? Or is it both? I think it'll probably come out as being both, where the resources that exist near surface are economic at today's prices. Do we want to go down the path of increasing the confidence of those resources and then looking at a mine plan to get them back into flim-flam quickly? And then there's the discovery opportunity underneath. So we're doing those two parts in parallel. Another month or something, we'll really understand where we're going to go first, I guess, in terms of that business plan. And that puts us into drilling over the winter period, is kind of what we're planning for Sherridon. For the projects in the US, they're drill ready now. They're a little bit hot at the moment, but within a month or two, then we're hoping to get rigs on the ground. Getting access to rigs in the US is hard. The industry's been running very strongly, and it's going to slow down a little bit, and so we're hopeful, but we're drill ready on those two projects. So we're doing the permitting process and trying to find a rig at the moment.
So I always try to find catalysts for companies going forward. That could be inflection points. Coming out with your Sherridon data and sort of summarizing that hopefully, but that could be a good catalyst where you have some exciting data to talk about and plan going forward and real some insight into what has happened there historically.
Yeah, absolutely. And really it's a major project, and it needs to be recognized as a major project. And as we start to talk about it, we can see, and I flashed across a little graph there, but essentially when you look at market capitalization or enterprise value versus the tons or pounds of copper in resources, then Aguila's due a bit of a re-rating, I would say, to recognize what's been found already. Let alone the potential of what we can find in the future. So once we start to understand that ourselves properly and express it, then I can see that being a very easy re-rating. The big trigger, obviously, in exploration is that one perfect drill hole. We have potential for those great drill holes at both Cora and Lida. And I guess really the real opportunity that we see at Lida is that it's never been drilled before. So we've got copper at surface. We've got an IP anomaly with 0 drill holes into it. So we get the opportunity there to put the first holes in, and the risk of drilling is that it gives you the answers, and so sometimes those are great and sometimes those are disappointing. But that's really the kind of discovery potential and re-rating potential that most investors are after, is that one great drill hole. At Cora, we absolutely know there's copper there, but we absolutely know where the target is. It's just about how much there's going to be and what the grades will be in those targets, because we're dealing with 70-year-old data. And at the moment, I'm happy to say that yes, there's copper in those drill holes, but it's either going to be too high or too low, the old results. So let's do our own work and show what's there. And so we'll certainly find some thick intersections of copper, I'm sure, associated with that magnetic low. We've just got to understand how much.
All right, some questions here. How many lenses have been identified at the Sherridon project so far?
Sure. So the historic mining was, thinking of the project as a whole, almost all of the ore at the moment has been discovered along one horizon. So essentially one semi-continuous lens, let's call it. The 2 mines that were operated, the east and the west mines, were 2 separate ore lenses, but sitting on the one stratigraphic horizon. And most of the other lenses are sitting at that similar stratigraphic horizon. Which is kind of how things develop in VHMS deposits. You've got, you imagine the seafloor and what's happening on the seafloor at the same time. But I guess if we switch the thinking around on something like that, which you need to do in geology and mining, and is that if you assume that the ore is only in one horizon, then you only explore that horizon. When you go out and you explore other horizons and you look for deformed deposits and different stratigraphic positions, then quite often you find surprises. It's a deformed district. It's been folded, and so often the ore body gets moved around in that process. And so they're deposits where you just can't assume. And we saw that cross section with the thin part at surface and the thick lump below it. You really can't assume with VHMS deposits what you're going to find. It's about geophysics and drilling. So if we look at the results across that Foran has received, so Foran drilled all of their first priority targets, and then they made a major new discovery based on a second priority target, which was a little bit deeper, and it was just something they hadn't really seen or understood before. And I'm sure we'll be seeing similar style of targets coming through in Sherridon as well.
All right, another question here. You've been describing it as a classical VHMS model for Manitoba. Is there also potential for a Beshi style mineralization?
Okay, well, that's a very specific question. Maybe, yeah. I'll put that one as a maybe. I'll take that as a question on notice and do a bit more research. But certainly as you come further south in the Flin Flon belt, probably yes. Sherridon, we sit at the very north edge of the Flin Flon belt. I'll take that as a question on notice and do a bit of research.
All right. And then as well, second part to this is obviously someone who knows more than me about mining and mineralization. Yeah. You mentioned lithium, but is there also REE, rare earth element potential in the carbonatites?
That's again, very specific question, and something that I do know a lot about. I've had a very long career in rare earths. There is an area about 100 kilometers north of Sherridon that is known to be rare earth bearing. There's some carbonatites up there. I don't know of any carbonatites on Sherridon itself on that property, and I haven't seen any data of rare earths. But certainly in the broader district. So there's an area in between Sherridon and Lynn Lake, if people want to check out their own maps. that does have carbonatite intrusions and does have some history of rare earths being discovered.
All right. We should be wrapping things up here. Can you, I guess we have one upcoming data point with the analysis of the Sherridon data package. What other types of news should we be looking for over the next through the end of the year, let's say?
Yeah, well, the most immediate one is very close, which is the results of the IP survey that we've done at Lida, and let's call that imminent. That's certainly the first one that I think will be very well received, because it shows really where the drill targets are going to be lying on the project. We'll start to do the permitting and move straight into drilling as soon as we can at that Lida project. So that will give us news flow of new data on a really exciting target. From the Cora project, I think we're drill ready. We don't need to do too much more work down there, but it'll be the permitting process that really ticks the boxes, which sounds a little bit boring, but getting permits is a hard process and a lengthy process. So anyone that's been in the business knows that getting permits is a milestone. And up at Sherridon, as we'll start to publish the entire database essentially of work that's been done before, and show the places that and we'll turn old data into new targets, and sort of start to express where we'll be drilling. And I think by comparison with the other successes that have been going on in the district, I think it'll be very well received when it's shown just how much there is left to do. And so we've certainly had some good conversations with the geologists of the time who worked on the project, who will support us in the future, and that were working for Halo Resources. And really it's about, they had lots of good ideas and all the stuff that they wanted to do, and the holes they wanted to drill that were never drilled. They stand ready for us as well. So we're getting on top of that, and we'll be expressing that very soon.
All right. And you have close to $1.5 million in the bank right now. That's enough to do a bit of drilling, not too much. Can you just, how can you punch a couple of holes on both the Lida and the Cora with that? When you're kind of constrained by that, you've got to be very specific, or have a very clear strategy with a couple of holes, so that you can maybe not necessarily go for even high mineralization, but high information off of those holes, so that can sort of drive a next round of drilling. Could you just talk about that briefly?
Yeah, for sure. And I've been a geologist for long enough to know that don't rely on luck with drilling. More is always better. And so don't take the risk of killing a good project with one drill hole. So I think from the Lida hole, the Lida project, we'll be looking at, say, 4 drill holes is a sensible first test, and probably the same for Cora. So I think with the money we've got at the moment, we'll be drilling one of those projects, and I believe that'll be Lida. And then we'll be financing, I think, to further the work as well. And on the Canadian side, we can look at flow through financing. On the US, it's hard dollars, to prepare us for additional work. We've got a great shareholder base, and very well supported by some key people, and so we can find money when we need it. Obviously, higher share price is something we want to see, and so we're being patient, and we're a very cost-effective company, and we keep our overheads extremely low. So we managed to get a lot done with a little bit of money, and so we'll continue on that pathway, and until the time is right to do a substantial financing.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. And any final comments before we close things off?
No, I think that was a good deep dive, which is our intention, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the work today.
Mark, thanks a lot. We'll be keeping our eyes open on results and news coming out of Aguila Copper. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Super. Thanks, Martin. All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers.